The battlefield was silent after the storm of fire and thunder. Smoke curled upward from broken machines, the ground still glowing from burned metal. The war between the alien empire and the humans had left ruins everywhere. Among the shattered stones and twisted weapons, a fragile sound echoed, a faint cry. It was the voice of a young alien princess, trapped and hurt. She lay on the cold ground, her golden armor cracked, her arm twisted in a way that made her chest tighten with pain. Her silver hair, once a symbol of pride in her royal house, was now tangled with blood and dust. Every breath felt heavy, her vision blurred, and she could hear the footsteps of soldiers far away. Her people had retreated, leaving her behind in the chaos. The princess tried to move, but her body refused. The wound was too deep. Through the smoke, another figure appeared, a tall shape with broad shoulders, dirt covering his uniform. It was a human soldier, his face marked with scars of battle, his hands stained with blood. The princess's heart filled with terror. Humans were called monsters by her people, ruthless, savage, heartless. Now one of them was standing over her, and she had no strength to resist. He knelt beside her without a word, his eyes scanning her broken arm. The princess tried to crawl away, but a sharp pain in her chest made her scream. The soldier looked at her, his gaze sharp yet strangely calm. He tore a piece of cloth from his uniform, then reached for her arm. Her eyes widened in horror as his rough hands touched her skin. "You monster," she cried, her voice trembling. Her people believed humans only enjoyed the suffering of others. Her heart raced as he pressed his thumb against her bone. Pain shot through her body like fire. Her scream echoed into the empty ruins. Tears fell from her eyes as she struggled to pull away. "You're cruel," she shouted, convinced he would bow. Was hurting her for pleasure, but the human did not laugh. He did not sneer. His jaw was tight, sweat on his forehead, his hands steady as iron. He pushed the broken bone back into place with raw strength. The sound made the princess shiver. Her stomach twisted at the crack. She thought she would faint, yet his eyes never left her face. He was watching to see if she could endure, not to mock her. Her cries filled the air and her body trembled in his grip. Still, he continued, wrapping her arm with the torn cloth, making a brace with a piece of shattered metal. Every movement was sharp, harsh, without mercy. The princess believed she was dying under his hands, but slowly, the bleeding stopped. The bone held firm. The burning pain eased. She could not understand. Was this torture, or was this healing? Her vision blurred as she looked at him again. The human soldier's hands were trembling now, not from joy, but from the effort of holding her bones steady. His breathing was heavy, his face pale from exhaustion. There was no cruelty in his eyes, only determination. Yet her mind was still trapped in fear. She repeated the words again, weaker this time. "You're cruel." The soldier said nothing. He only tied the last knot on her arm. Then he pulled away, sitting back against the wall. His chest rose and fell as he tried to catch his breath. The princess watched him through tear-blurred eyes, her heart confused. Was he truly a monster? Or had she misunderstood everything her people told her? The silence between them grew heavy, broken only by her faint sobs. She wanted to hate him, but her body felt alive because of him. The pain was still sharp, but it was no longer killing her. Her thoughts swirled in darkness until her eyes closed at last. The world faded as she fainted. The last thing she saw was the human soldier leaning against the wall, his scarred hands still shaky. From what he had done, the battlefield was silent again. Only two figures remained in the ruins, an alien princess and a human soldier, bound by fear, pain, and something she could not yet name. The princess opened her eyes to the dim light of broken walls around her. For a moment, she thought she was in the palace infirmary, cared for by healers and machines, but the smell of smoke and dust reminded her of the truth. She was still trapped in the ruins of the battlefield, and beside her sat the human soldier. His head was bowed, his eyes half closed, but his hand rested firmly on the grip of his weapon, ready for danger. Her arm throbbed with sharp pain, wrapped tightly in cloth and scraps of metal. She gasped softly, the memory of what he had done crashing back into her mind, the cruel press of his hands, the unbearable pain, the sound of her bones snapping into place. Tears welled in her eyes, and she whispered again, "You're cruel." The soldier slowly lifted his head, his tired gaze meeting hers. "I had no choice," he said in a low, steady voice. "Your bone was broken. It had to be set, or you would have lost the arm, maybe your life." His words were calm, but to her ears they sounded strange. Humans were never supposed to save their enemies, never supposed to risk themselves for outsiders. She shook her head weakly, her voice trembling. You hurt me like a beast. How is that saving? The soldier leaned closer, his face shadowed by the flickering light. You think cruelty is when someone causes pain, he said, his tone sharp but controlled. But sometimes pain is the only path to healing. Remember that, princess. The way he spoke made her chest tighten with anger and confusion. How dare a human lecture her? How dare he call her pain necessary? Before she could answer, the sound of heavy footsteps echoed outside the ruins. Both of them froze. The soldier pressed a finger to his lips, motioning her to stay quiet. Her heart pounded as voices rang out in her native tongue. Alien soldiers, her own people, they were searching the rubble, hunting for survivors. Say, and any human unlucky enough to still be breathing. The princess's chest rose and fell rapidly. Her people were close. She wanted to call out, to scream for rescue. But when she looked at the human soldier's face, she saw the sharp tension in his jaw, the calm readiness in his eyes. If she spoke, they would find him too, and he would be executed on the spot. She pressed her lips shut, unsure if she was saving him or saving herself. The soldiers passed, their voices fading into the distance. The human relaxed only slightly, his hand falling from his weapon. You didn't call them, he said softly, almost surprised. The princess turned her face away, ashamed of her own silence. I don't know why, she whispered, her voice cracking. The soldier leaned back against the wall, closing his eyes for a brief moment. You think I saved you because I wanted you to suffer, he said, his voice heavy with exhaustion. But I saved you because I don't see an enemy dying. I see a life worth saving. The words struck her harder than the pain in her arm. Her people always taught her that humans were heartless, yet here he was, offering kindness where none was expected. Her eyes lingered on his scarred hands, hands that had caused her so much pain but had also pulled her back from death. Hands that shook not from cruelty, but from exhaustion. For the first time, doubt touched her heart. Maybe the cruelty she saw was not real. Maybe it was sacrifice. But she could not admit it, not yet. You are still a monster, she whispered, though her voice lacked the strength it once held. The soldier gave no answer this time. He only shifted his weight, sitting beside her like a silent guardian. The ruins were quiet again, but the silence between them was heavy with unspoken truths. The princess lay back, her body weak, her thoughts spinning in a storm of fear and questions. She had expected death at his hands, but instead she found herself alive, confused, and strangely protected. Her eyes slowly closed again as sleep pulled her under, and while she drifted into uneasy dreams, she felt a presence beside her. The human soldier, watching the shadows with steady eyes, keeping danger away. The night grew darker, the ruins colder, and in the silence of broken worlds, an enemy and a savior sat side by side, bound not by trust but by pain, fear, and something that neither of them yet understood. The ruins grew colder as the night stretched on. The princess stirred in uneasy sleep, her arm bound tightly by the soldier's rough bandage. The human had not closed his eyes, his ears sharp to every sound, his weapon always near his side. He knew the enemy patrols would return, and if they found them, both he and the alien princess would not live to see dawn. When the first pale light crept across the sky, the soldier finally stood. He glanced at her, fragile and pale against the broken stone. She looked less like an enemy now and more like a lost child. He bent down, sliding his arms beneath her, lifting her as though she weighed nothing. Her eyes fluttered open at the sudden motion, her lips parting in confusion. "What are you doing?" she whispered, her voice weak but sharp. He kept moving, stepping carefully through the wreckage, his boots crunching on shattered glass and broken armor. "Staying here is death," he muttered, his tone low and steady. "Your soldiers will search again. And if they find you, they will find me too. I need a place they will not look." The princess blinked, her head resting against his shoulder as exhaustion pulled at her body. She wanted to argue, to demand he put her down, but the pain in her chest silenced her. Every step made her broken arm throb, yet she noticed how carefully he carried her. He never let her body jolt against the sharp rubble, never once loosened his grip. Her heart felt tight with confusion. Why would a monster carry her as if she mattered? After what felt like hours, he pushed open a cracked metal door at the edge of the ruins. Inside was a dark chamber, half collapsed, the remains of an abandoned shelter. The air was thick with dust, but it was hidden, safe, and far from the main road. He lowered her onto a pile of old cloth and broken crates. The princess looked around, fear still burning in her eyes. "This is no place for a princess," she whispered, her voice trembling. "No," he answered, settling down against the wall, his eyes scanning the shadows. "But it's the only place that will keep you alive tonight." The silence between them was heavy. She clutched her arm and stared at him with anger and confusion mixed together. Her stomach twisted, and suddenly she realized she had not eaten since the battle. Her body trembled from weakness. The soldier noticed and reached into his pack, pulling out a small piece of dry ration. He broke it in half, offering the larger piece to her. She hesitated, glaring at it as if it were poison. "Do you think I would waste time feeding you only to kill you later?" he asked, his voice tired but sharp. The princess narrowed her eyes, then snatched the food, taking small bites. The taste was bitter, nothing like the rich meals of her palace. Yet each bite calmed the burning ache in her body. Her eyes betrayed her, softening for the first time since she met him. "Why?" she asked suddenly, her voice cracking. "Why do this for me? I am your enemy. My people want your kind destroyed." The soldier's jaw tightened, and for a moment he did not answer. Finally he spoke, his words low, almost like a confession. "Because if I leave you, you die. And I do not let anyone die when I can stop it." Her chest tightened at his words. He spoke with such finality, as if this was not mercy but a law written inside his bones. She could not understand. Her people healed with machines, with clean, painless science. They never spoke of sacrifice, never of enduring pain to save a life, but this human, he had forced her through agony so she might live. "You're cruel," she whispered again, her voice shaking, but for the first time the words did not sound like hate. They sounded like confusion, like fear of the truth. The soldier said nothing, his gaze fixed on the broken door. He was listening again, his body tense, every muscle ready for battle. Outside, faint voices echoed through the ruins, alien soldiers once more searching. The princess froze, her food slipping from her fingers. The soldier's hand tightened on his weapon, his eyes narrowing. They were coming closer, their words sharp, their boots heavy against the stone. The fragile silence inside the shelter threatened to shatter. The princess's heart pounded, torn between screaming for her people and staying silent beside the monster who had saved her. Her throat felt dry, her mind in chaos. Every step outside grew louder, every second stretched into eternity. The soldier glanced at her, his finger pressed to his lips once more. In that instant her breath caught, her fear mixing with something she could not name. The voices stopped just outside the shelter. The sound of metal scraping against stone filled the air. One wrong move, one sound, and they would be found. The princess clenched her jaw, her body trembling. The human raised his weapon, his eyes cold and ready. The air inside the broken shelter grew thick with danger, and in that moment, both alien princess and human soldier realized their fates were no longer separate. They would rise or fall together, hidden in the dark. The alien voices outside drifted away slowly, their echoes fading into the distance. The princess let out a shaky breath, her body still trembling. She had been seconds away from calling to her people, but the human's sharp eyes had silenced Even now her heart raced as she remembered the tension, the closeness of discovery. Inside the shelter, the air felt heavy, filled with both fear and questions. The soldier lowered his weapon but did not relax. He sat against the wall, his breathing steady, his eyes still sharp. The princess looked at him with a mix of anger and confusion. He was her enemy, a human, yet he had risked his life to keep her hidden. She could not understand what drove him, what strange law guided his actions. Her arm throbbed again, a dull ache spreading through her body. She clenched her teeth, glaring at him. "You call this healing, but it feels like torture." The soldier's gaze flicked toward her, his expression unreadable. "You think healing should be painless," he said quietly, "because your machines do everything for you." The princess's lips parted, stunned that he knew. He raised his scarred hand, letting her see it clearly in the dim light. Deep lines ran across his skin, marks of battles fought without protection. Humans survive because we endure, he continued, his voice calm but strong. When there are no machines, no perfect tools, only your hands and will remain. He closed his fists slowly, the knuckles white. Pain is not cruelty, it is the cost of survival. The words stung her like sharp glass. She had been raised to believe that comfort was strength, that machines were mercy. But this man spoke of scars and pain as if they were treasures. Her chest tightened, her mind spinning. She wanted to argue, but her voice faltered. "Do you think suffering makes you noble?" she whispered bitterly. The soldier shook his head. "No, it only makes us stubborn. It keeps us alive when others give up." His eyes locked onto hers, steady and unflinching. "You called me cruel, but cruelty is choosing not to act when you can save a life." His words cut through her like a blade, Liet. Ving her silent, the shelter grew colder, shadows stretching across the cracked walls. The princess pulled her knees close, staring at her trembling hands. For the first time, doubt cracked the walls of her beliefs. Maybe her people had mistaken human endurance for savagery. Maybe the cruelty she hated was the reason she was still alive. The silence was broken by the distant roar of engines above. Both of them lifted their heads sharply. Through the shattered ceiling, faint lights cut across the sky. Alien search ships sweeping the ruins. The princess gasped, recognizing the pattern of the patrol. "They are closing in," she whispered, fear rising in her chest. The soldier stood, his weapon ready. "They won't stop until they find someone, human or alien," he muttered. He moved closer to the door, his body tense, his eyes narrowing at the sound of approaching boots. The princess's heart pounded wildly, torn between the hope of rescue and the fear of betrayal. If they found her with him, what would they do? Her thoughts swirled in chaos. Would her people punish her for being touched by a human, for being saved by one? The idea twisted inside her, sharper than the pain in her arm. She looked at the soldier, his back straight, his scars glowing faintly in the light. He was not trembling, not afraid, only ready to fight if he had to. The soldiers outside grew louder, voices echoing through the ruins. The princess's throat tightened, the choice before her unbearable. Should she call out and be taken back to her people, or stay silent and risk everything beside him? The soldier turned his head slightly, his voice low, steady, unshaken. "Whatever happens, I will not let them hurt you." Her breath caught, her eyes wide. The words felt impossible, alien in their kindness. Her own people had abandoned her in the chaos of battle, yet her enemies swore to protect her. The clash between fear and truth burned inside her heart, and as the boots drew closer, she whispered to Baum, read without meaning to, Why are you like this?" The soldier did not answer. He only tightened his grip on his weapon, his eyes fixed on the door. The voices outside grew louder, the shadows of the patrol stretching across the broken walls. The princess closed her eyes, trembling, caught between two worlds, one of machines and comfort, the other of scars and sacrifice. In the darkness of the shelter, the truth pressed down on her like a weight. Maybe pain was not cruelty. Maybe the real cruelty was never knowing how much you could endure. The sound of boots outside grew louder, echoing against the broken stone. Shadows moved across the cracks of the ruined shelter, long and sharp like blades. The princess's breath caught in her throat, her body frozen, her heart hammering in her chest. She knew the voices. They were her people, armored soldiers of the royal guard. If they found her with a human, they would not see a rescued princess. They would see betrayal. The soldier pressed his back against the wall, his weapon raised, his body still as stone. Every muscle in him was ready, but his eyes flicked to the princess for only a moment. That single look spoke more than words. Stay quiet, stay strong. Her lips trembled, her throat dry. She wanted to call out, to scream for them to save her. But another thought held her still. If she called them, he would die instantly. The boots stopped just outside, voices in her language sharp and commanding. "Check the shelter," one voice ordered. The door handle rattled, dust falling from the frame. The soldier raised his weapon higher, his finger tightening on the trigger. The princess's body shook with fear, torn between loyalty and the strange bond forming inside her. With a heavy crack, the door began to open. The soldier gritted his teeth, his body tense like a coiled spring. The princess's voice burst out before she could top herself. "Wait," she whispered harshly. The soldier glanced at her, surprised. Her wide eyes shone with desperation. "Do not kill them, please." For a moment, time froze. The soldier's jaw tightened, his eyes locking on hers. He gave a sharp nod, lowering his aim just slightly. Then the door swung open, and two alien soldiers stepped inside, weapons glowing in their hands. Their eyes widened the moment they saw the human. "Human!" one of them shouted, lifting his rifle. The soldier moved first, faster than thought. He lunged forward, slamming the weapon aside with the butt of his gun. The chamber filled with the clash of bodies, the roar of struggle, the heavy crack of bone against metal. The princess gasped, clutching her bandaged arm, her heart thundering in her chest. The human fought with brutal precision, his movements sharp and powerful. He twisted one soldier's arm, sending the rifle clattering to the floor. The second soldier swung with his blade, sparks flying as it scraped across the wall. The human ducked, his fist slamming into the soldier's chest, the impact echoing like thunder. The fight was raw, savage, and terrifying. Yet every strike was meant to protect her. The princess's eyes widened as she watched. She had seen soldiers of her people fight with skill, with discipline, with machines guiding their movements. But this human fought with something else, something frightening and powerful. Every strike was born of survival, every motion carved by scars and suffering. It was not elegance, it was willpower made flesh. One soldier crashed against the wall, unconscious. The other dropped his blade, coughing, before collapsing to the floor. The human stood over them, chest rising and falling, sweat dripping down his face. He looked at her briefly, his voice rough but steady. "We need to move. More will come." The princess stared at him, her lips trembling. "You risked your life. For me." He gave no answer, only turned to grab his pack, his weapon back in his hand. But she could not stop staring. At him, the way he had shielded her, the way he had fought, her mind clashed with itself. He was supposed to be a monster, yet he had saved her again. Her people had left her, abandoned her in the chaos, but this human refused to leave her side. Her chest ached with a feeling she could not name. Suddenly, a shout rose from outside. More soldiers, more boots rushing toward the shelter. The human's eyes narrowed, his voice sharp. "Stay behind me no matter what." The princess's breath came fast, fear and something deeper burning in her veins. For the first time, she did not see a monster when she looked at him. She saw a shield, a scarred warrior standing between her and death. The door shuddered again, more voices roaring commands, weapons charging outside. The soldier tightened his grip, ready to face them all. The princess whispered softly, almost without realizing it, "You are cruel, but you fight for me." Her words faded into the heavy silence before the storm, and then the door burst open once more. The pursuit had found them, and this time, there would be no running. The shelter door exploded inward with a blast of light. Dust and fire filled the air as more alien soldiers stormed inside, their weapons glowing bright. The human spun, firing his gun in sharp bursts, forcing them back for a heartbeat. But there were too many, the narrow room filling with armored bodies. The clash was brutal, fists, blades, and gunfire mixing into a storm of chaos. The princess pressed against the wall, her broken arm clutched to her chest. Her people's voices rang out, sharp and commanding. "Protect the princess, kill the human." Her heart twisted, hearing them speak of him like an animal, like prey. The human roared, striking down one soldier with the butt of his weapon, but another slammed him to the ground. Armor and strength overwhelmed him, chains binding his arms. The fight ended as suddenly as it began. The princess stared in horror as the human was forced to his knees, blood dripping from his lip. One of the alien commanders turned to her, his voice calm but cold. "Princess, we found you at last. You are safe now, but this creature will be executed." He pressed the edge of his blade against the soldier's neck. Her body shook violently, her breath coming in gasps. She should feel relief. Her people had come, she was rescued, but her eyes refused to look away from the human kneeling before her. His head bowed, yet his eyes still burned with defiance, with the same unbroken will that had carried her through the night. She remembered his scarred hands pressing her bone back into place, the unbearable pain that saved her life. "Do it quickly," another soldier said, shoving the human down harder. The commander's blade pressed deeper. The princess opened her mouth, but no sound came, her throat tight with fear and confusion. Her people had left her to die, yet this human had fought against death itself to keep her alive. How could she stand silent now? "Stop!" she cried suddenly, her voice sharp and ringing in the chamber. Every soldier froze, their helmets turning toward her. The commander frowned. "Princess, do not fear. We will remove this filth from your sight." Her eyes blazed, tears streaking down her face. "No, you will not." The words left her trembling, but she did not take them back. Gasps filled the air, her soldiers shifting uneasily. The commander narrowed his eyes. "Princess, this human touched you. He is a beast, a danger to you. He deserves only death." The princess stepped forward, her body shaking, but her voice steady. "He saved me. When you abandoned me in the battlefield, he carried me, he healed me, he fought for me." Her chest heaved, her words spilling like fire. "If you kill him, then you kill the one who gave me back my life." Silence fell heavy. Over the room, the soldiers stared at her as though she had spoken blasphemy. The commander's jaw tightened. "You defend this creature, even against your own people." The princess's arm ached, her body weak, but she lifted her chin. "Yes, I defend him because I saw truth in his cruelty." The soldiers murmured, their voices sharp and confused. The human raised his head, his eyes locking on hers, his breath ragged. She met his gaze, her heart trembling. "You are cruel, but your cruelty saved me. I will not let you die for it." The commander growled, his blade still pressed to the soldier's neck. "Princess, if you order this, you go against the empire itself." Her whole life flashed before her eyes. Palaces, machines, comfort without struggle. And then the last day, the battlefield, the pain, the scars, the hands that hurt her to keep her alive. Her decision burned in her chest, sharp and unshakable. "Then let the empire hear me," she said, her voice breaking, yet unyielding. "This human will not be executed, not while I breathe." The soldiers looked at each other uncertain. Some lowered their weapons, unwilling to move against her will. The commander's blade trembled, caught between law and loyalty. The human stared at her, silent, his eyes wide with something she could not name. For the first time, the fate of both hung not in the hands of armies, but in the voice of a wounded princess. The chamber was filled with fire and silence, her people waiting for her final word, the human still bound in chains. The choice was hers alone, and with it, the future of everything she thought she knew. The chamber was filled with silence, heavy and sharp like a blade. Alien soldiers shifted uneasily, their eyes moving between the princess and the human kneeling in chains. The commander's blade still rested against the soldier's throat, but his grip faltered at her defiance. Her woo. RDS echoed in the air, words no alien princess had ever spoken before. She had chosen to protect the very creature they were taught to fear. The soldier lifted his head slowly, his eyes meeting hers. For the first time since the battle began, his defiance softened, replaced by something else. Respect. The princess's chest tightened, her voice trembling yet strong. "Release him." The commander clenched his jaw. "Princess, if we obey this, you stand against the will of the empire." Her heart pounded, but her chin did not lower. "Then let the empire stand against me." Gasps rippled through the soldiers, their loyalty shaken. Some lowered their weapons in silent obedience to their princess. Others hesitated, waiting for the commander's command. The human soldier, bloodied and bound, spoke for the first time since his capture. His voice was rough but steady. "You don't need to do this. They'll turn on you." The princess's throat tightened, her eyes stinging with tears. "You are cruel," she whispered. "But your cruelty gave me back my life. If they kill you, then every breath I take after is a lie." The human's gaze lingered on her, searching her face as if seeing her for the first time. He saw not a pampered royal, but a woman who had endured pain and still stood tall. For a moment, even the chains could not hide the power of that truth. The commander snarled, shoving the blade harder against the soldier's neck. "If you side with him, princess, then you betray your blood, your throne, and your people." Her voice cracked, but she shouted louder than she ever had in her life. "My people left me to die. He saved me. If loyalty means silence, then I choose betrayal." Her cry shook the chamber, the soldiers frozen by her fire. The commander's face twisted with fury, but the soldiers looked to her and slowly their loyalty shifted. One by one, weapons lowered until only the commander's blade remained pressed against the human. The human's eyes stayed locked on the princess, his voice quiet, almost unbelieving. "Yo, you stood for me against your own kind." She met his gaze, her heart trembling. "I do not understand your people," she admitted. "You cause pain, you endure it. You walk through fire without fear, and still you save even those who hate you." Her voice broke into a whisper. "I thought cruelty was your nature, but now I see. Your cruelty is sacrifice." The human said nothing, only watched her with steady eyes, but in the silence, something unspoken passed between them. At last the commander growled and pulled his blade away, his pride broken under the weight of her command. The soldiers released the human, his chains falling heavy to the ground. He rose slowly, his body scarred and bruised, yet unbroken. The princess stared at him, remembering every moment, his rough hands forcing her bone into place, his strength shielding her, his will standing firm when even her people faltered, and now she knew the truth. "You are cruel," she whispered one last time, her voice soft, trembling. The human's lips curved into a faint smile, his answer simple. "No, I am human." The words cut deeper than any blade, echoing in the hearts of all who heard them. The princess's tears fell, not from fear, but from the weight of revelation. She bowed her head slightly, whispering as though confessing to herself, "Then humanity is stronger than we ever believed." The human turned, his steps slow but unshaken, walking toward the broken door. The soldiers parted silently, none daring to stop him. The princess watched him vanish into the smoke-filled ruins, her chest aching with a strange new fire. Her people had machines, armies, and comfort, but the humans had something greater, the will to suffer, to endure, to sacrifice, and in that, a power no empire could break. As the last echo of his footsteps faded, the princess pressed her good hand against her heart. Her voice was faint but steady. "Yo, you are cruel, but kind." And in the silence of the ruins, the truth of humanity lingered, unyielding and eternal.